Broadcasting live to the world. Now, it's Sheila Zielinski.
This is a very sinister Luciferian eugenics plan. These spineless weasels preach what people want to hear. They replace repentance with dreams of the good life. Mindless singing. Dying daily, taking up your cross, suffering and sacrificing have been superseded with name it and claim it. And as dark as I know it looks out there, the good news is that God is advancing his kingdom. And it's very exciting to be a part of his great commission.
It's Sheila Zielinski. The Sheila Zielinski Show, the only show to give you the truth behind the headlines, prophecy, and the deeper things of God. Now, here is your host, end-time watchwoman, Sheila Zielinski.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Sheila Zielinski Show for this February 26, 2016 edition. I just want to say thank you for tuning in from across the globe. Folks, if you have not got my app, please do so. Go to the App Store and type in Weekend Vigilante and get the app. It is a great customizable app, and it has a lot of great features such as all my social media feeds, the podcast, End Time News. It's got some great features, so do get that. And all the shows archived there, just a click away. Very convenient for you, the listener. And if you have not got your tickets for Hear the Watchman, do so. You can go to hearthewatchman.com. There also is a direct link on my website at the right-hand corner. So do get your tickets as they are very quickly selling out. There's only a few tickets left, so do get your tickets fast. It's going to be fantastic to see you all out at that event. And if you're going to be in the Houston, Texas area, please do the Appearance Ministries with Augusto Perez. It is going to be fantastic. I can tell you that those are powerful moves of God, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be there. So 4th, 5th, 6th of March, if you're going to be in the Houston area, you will definitely want to be attending that. There's more information on my yesterday's bio. That's February 25th's bio. There's a direct link. Light in the darkness, a foreshadowing of his glory indeed. It's going to be fantastic. I just want to remind everyone that I was able to reach my goal in my equipment fundraiser, and I want to thank everyone for donating to that. I really appreciate the fact that everyone stepped up. So thank you so much for that. And again, just a reminder that this show is 100% unbiased, uncensored, and listener funded. So please do prayerfully consider monthly donations to the program. And I thank you very much for that. There are very few programs like this on the air today, so I do ask for your support, and I thank you for that. Go to weekendvigilante.com, click on the donate, and there is information on how to donate there. And I thank you again for that. Today on the program, I am very excited to have on Patrick Wood. He is the author of Technocracy Rising, the Trojan horse of global transformation, and it is my pleasure to have him on the program today. Patrick Wood, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Sheila. Really good to be back with you again.
Patrick, coming out of 2016, right out of the gate, there's been such an acceleration. You know, it used to be that every couple days you'd find an incredible headline, and now it's minute to minute. You cannot keep up to these headlines, and it's hard to know where the tail ends and the head starts on this thing. Do you find this acceleration incredible?
The times are changing, and we've noticed this acceleration pattern for years now. I have especially. What used to take 10 years now takes a year. What used to take 3 years now takes 3 months. That's just the way it is. Partly, it's because there's an acceleration of technology sophistication. Mm-hmm. It's just growing like crazy. Every week there's some major new announcement on technology that just blows your mind. The other thing is, this whole project of globalization, of transformation, of the global process, this whole project has been in the mill for 40 years in earnest. And most of those years were planning years, were infrastructure years, were setting things up years, this is a huge project, you might imagine. It's more complex than building a nuclear submarine.
Yeah.
Well, the whole part of the project, the initial part of the project is you never see it. You don't see those people doing the planning and stuff. It goes way back. But when the building starts to go up, right, when they lay that foundation, you don't even necessarily see the foundation from the street. But when you all of a sudden you see a building going up, and you drive by next week and boom, there's 6 stories of structure. And you go, where did that come from? I didn't see that. I wasn't here last week. And you're all amazed. I mean, everybody has that experience. I've had it several times just looking at big buildings. The deal is you don't see all the project stuff that goes in before the building actually goes up. And that's what's happening to us right now. They're building this thing out. Finally, they've got everything in place they need. They're building it out like crazy. And we're watching this whole thing going up and go, where did this come from? Where did that come from? Oh my gosh, I never saw that coming. Well, we didn't see it coming.
The opener of X-Files, of course, it's back on the air. Patrick, this clip I'm going to play really tells the tale, doesn't it? Let's take a listen.
Why do such a thing and lie about it? Our own government.
Your own government lies as a matter of course, as a matter of policy. The Tuskegee experiments on black men in the 30s, Henrietta Lacks.
What are they trying to do?
That's the missing piece.
But it's not hard to imagine. A government hiding, hoarding alien technology for 70 years at the expense of human life and the future of the planet. Driven not only by corporate greed, but a darker objective.
The takeover of America.
And then the world itself, by any means necessary, however violent, or cruel, or efficient. By severe drought, brought on by weather wars, conducted secretly using aerial contaminants and high-altitude electromagnetic waves, in a state of perpetual war, to create problem, reaction, solution scenarios to distract, enrage, and enslave American citizens at home, with tools like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, which abridge the Constitution in the name of national security. The militarization of police forces in cities across the U.S., the building of prison camps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency with no stated purpose, the corporate takeover of food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, even the military in clandestine agendas to fatten, dull, sicken, and control a populace already consumed by consumerism. A government that taps your phone, collects your data, and monitors your whereabouts with impunity. A government preparing to use that data against you when it strikes. And the final takeover begins.
The takeover of America.
By a well-oiled and well-armed multinational group of elites that will cull, kill, and subjugate.
Happening as we sit here.
It's happening all around us.
The other shoe waiting to drop.
It'll probably start on a Friday. The banks will announce a security action necessitating their computers to go offline all weekend.
Digital money will disappear, followed by the detonation of strategic electromagnetic pulse bombs to knock out major grids.
What will seem like an attack on America by terrorists or Russia.
Or a simulated alien invasion, using alien replica vehicles that exist and are already in use.
An alien invasion of the U.S.
The Russians tried it in 1947.
You can't say these things.
I'm going to say them tomorrow.
You can really see the conditioning going on, can't you, in this clip that I just played?
Well, there is a conditioning, and the movie, the first X-Files episode was brilliant as far as, in my estimation, as far as the actual creation of that first show. And the reason I say that is that for people who are kind of on the inside of this, looking at this, people like yourself and like me, I suppose, we listen to that movie and say, "Oh my gosh, look, they're talking about it." You know, they're really treating it seriously. They're talking about it. But to somebody on the outside that doesn't know what we know, that just, turning on a TV show and there's another one, let's watch that one. They look at something like that and they take those very same topics and they immediately associate them with UFOs and aliens.
Right.
And so they're preconditioned to write off everything that we're trying to get through.
Let's face it, paranormal activity, that really does get lumped in there with aliens and strange phenomena, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and it confuses people. I remember the final video that Francis Schaeffer did on his great series, How Shall We Then Live?
Right.
At the very end of the last thing, he said the final stage of, whatever, the postmodern world is going to be where technology gets confused with magic, and it's going to appear as people to be magic. In other words, they're so far distance from the reality of understanding the technology. To them, it's just magic. They have no concept that something is going on behind the scenes to make it happen. It's just magic. And I think we see that today, a lot of it. Kids looking, walking down the street, staring at their iPhone, they're like, bowing down to worship the god of Apple, I guess.
The god, and, with the bite taken out of it, by the way.
I know, and it's like, they just don't get it. They're like in La La Land, thinking, wow, this is my entitlement now. I don't care how it works, but it sure is magic to me.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you're right. I mean, we've created this culture of social zombies where I've been in restaurants, Patrick, and I am stunned at the amount of even couples. We're talking people in their 30s, 40s, 50s that are staring at their phone. They're vehemently just zoned out on their phone. They cannot break free from their Facebook updates. Do you find that sad?
It is very sad. Socially, it's sad. From a human point of view, it's sad because people lose connection with other people. We thought 20 years ago, I remember having discussions with people about how evil email was, that it breaks social bonds, and, why not just pick up the phone and talk to somebody or go visit them in person, do a handwritten letter, whatever. And all of those issues are on steroids today because people don't have any human connection anymore. Now you layer on top of that virtual reality that's coming at us like a freight train. Within 5 years, kids will no longer be staring at their phone. They'll be wearing virtual reality goggles and immersed in a virtual world that could be anywhere in the world or anything in the world, just depending on who's going to program the dumb thing.
Which is frightening.
They'll be totally disconnected. I mean, if you think they're disconnected now, just wait.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sad thing is, I mean, there's so many children that you don't see children outside playing and running, climbing trees and playing in your neighborhood. You see kids go over to their houses. What do they do now? They play video games. I mean, we're so far removed of normalcy now, aren't we? And I think that's the piece is what even is normalcy anymore, Patrick?
Well, no, that's right. And nobody has had the discussion over where this technology is leading us. That's really the issue. It's not that the technology is evil in itself, but systems tend to degrade if they're not maintained and if they're not curated, if you will. And the technology that's coming at us may well have great benefits to mankind. Some of it, I'm sure, will have great benefits to mankind. But the problem is there are evil people in the world who will use the very same technology for very evil ends. And we can't discount that. We just can't. You just can't go around saying all the time, we believe in the goodness of man, and everybody's going to be benevolent with this technology, and really it's going to be really good. It's going to be really building up people and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, that's fantasy. That is not the way it's going to happen. It has never happened that way in the history of the world. And, the Bible alludes to it, when it talks about the love of money. The money is not evil, but the love of money is. It's a root of all sorts of evil, it says. So technology is not bad, but, in itself, but the love of technology, especially when you decide you want to manipulate other people with it, now you're talking evil. You're talking some very bad outcomes.
Well, and there's always such nefarious things. I mean, you actually reminded me of something. Of course, you brought up Apple a minute ago. The FBI demanding that Apple break the password encryption on those iPhones. We're living in a police state. And if someone broke into your house, I say to people, are you just going to sit there and are you not going to protect your family? What are you going to do? And I've asked this question to different people, Patrick, and I am stunned at the amount of Christians that said, well, what can we do? There's such a lulling. It's like, well, I don't have anything to hide. So why do I care that the FBI is demanding Apple break the password encryption? I don't have anything to hide. That boils my blood when people say that, Patrick.
Well, it does, and it just points out their gross ignorance of life around them. That's all it is. It's just gross ignorance. They have no ignorance of history, no ignorance of they have ignorance of the law, ignorance of just, basic human rights, and they just are dumbstruck. They're so dumbed down that they just can't figure this stuff out. The whole battle going on with Apple and the FBI, by the way, this is really hot in the news right now. I mean, people want to talk about it out there in the world. And my view of this is the federal government occasionally will get the press involved in an issue. Most of the time, as you know, the press talks about Kim Kardashian's, what, or something, They pick up their own topics, the stupid topics. But occasionally, when the feds feed a topic to the press to talk about, usually you need to look behind the scenes and say, why are they doing that? Because it's always to lever public opinion. It's a propaganda tool. And the FBI chose to make this a public debate with Apple, to blow it completely out of proportion, whatever, and go after Apple in the press. And now it's created a huge brouhaha across our country, and other people are watching from outside our country to see what's going to happen. And, you got to ask the question, okay, what's going on here? Well, the fact is the FBI, the CIA, the DHS, the NSA have been slapped down legislatively to drop this line of thinking. This is 3 years ago. Did it stop them? No. Even when a court order came out, that didn't stop them then. They just kept on doing it. So apparently there's no stopping them. But here's the thing. They keep coming back and back and back to break the door down break the back door down to all the technology companies in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, like iPhone and the Android and so on. They want access to every cotton-picking thing that has electronic bits in it, worldwide, all the time. And they feel that the cell phone is an important part of that. And I agree. It really is, because this is so ubiquitous today. It's just all over the world. And like you said, watch everybody walking down the street looking at their smartphones, right? So the feds want this badly, and they use the lever of this terrorist act to force Apple in the media, because they get public sentiment going with them, to force Apple to break this thing down for them. But there are hundreds of other iPhones sitting in the hands of police and law enforcement across the country that are just itching to come right in behind the FBI if they break this damn down. And, it's not just one phone. People say, well, why can't they just give one phone to them? It's not just one phone, folks. It'll be every phone that the law enforcement wants to get a hold of. Every single phone will be broken down eventually if they let this Pandora's box get open. And that's what Apple's fighting against. I wouldn't, if somebody came up to you, even a cop, if a cop come up and said, Sheila, give me your purse, you probably wouldn't react too kindly to that. Well, no, you can't have my purse. No. It's got a bunch of private stuff in it.
Where's your warrant, sir?
That's right. A man would feel the same way about his wallet. If you lose your wallet, your driver's license is in there, your credit cards are in there, and it's, oh my gosh, you got a week worth of work just to go out and, kill your credit cards and have them reissued and, go down and get a new picture taken for your driver's license, and it's a pain in the rear. Well, your cell phone is turning into your purse and your wallet.
That's right.
Everything is in there. Your passwords are in there because they synchronize from your desktop. Your credit cards are in there because you're using electronic payment systems now that work through the smartphone. You've got all your private pictures and your private communication, maybe some stuff you really don't want anybody else to see because it's embarrassing to you if they found out.
But Patrick, do you find it stunning? I can't even get into my own laptop without putting in my Google password anymore, and they can't even remove it.
That is amazing. That is. I'm not surprised, but that's amazing. That is amazing.
And then everything on our iMacs are all linked with our iPhones, our iPads. I mean, it's all just synchronized too. And then you have this litany, close to 100 billion devices will be connected, they say, by 2020, including our automobiles, our smart TVs, our dishwasher, our fridge, our stove, our appliances. Guess what, folks? They've said on record, we're going to spy on you through your smart appliances. I mean, that is something that's right out of a sci-fi, but yet it's happening. And more these personal assistants you see out there, they're based on artificial intelligence. And it's just this whole theme to me, Patrick, is we're learning how to be micromanaged by these technocratic oligarchs. It's serfdom by stealth here.
That is what's happening. We are increasingly being corralled in to a behavior that they're orchestrating. It's not nearly as bad as it's going to be in a few years, but just about every facet of life you can look at now, you're being corralled in. I mean, it's hard to get through any store now and not get in an argument with the cashier that you don't want to use your rewards card. Well, why don't you have a rewards card? Well, you just fill this thing out, you get it. Well, the second you fill out the rewards card, they got a whole nother bucket of information on you that they will have every time you go in and buy something new. It gets attached to your rewards card, and they sell that data.
Well,
they
that's
sell
smart
it to the
shopper data. People think it's just, I'm saving a few bucks. Guess what, folks? Smart saver cards are one data mining operation, aren't they, Patrick?
Totally data mining. They give you a little benefit, and you think, I get some points or something like, it used to be S&H green stamps 50 years ago, but now it's simpler than that. It's just all electronic. You get some little token for the stuff that you buy, but otherwise it's a data mining gold mine for them, and they sell your data to people, and pretty soon everybody has your data everywhere. And this has become ubiquitous. Try and go down to your bank machine at your bank. That's when the bank is closed inside. Try and get out $500 out of your account. You can't do it. They'll say you can only take $200, maybe $300 at the most. Sometimes you see a bank, they'll take $400 or $500 out, but they won't let you take the cash out. And you can say, well, I got $10,000 in the bank. I want some money. And you cannot get more than that daily allowance out. And you can pound on the machine. You can hit it with a hammer. You can go to another machine down the street and try and get another $200 out, and they will tell you, sorry, but you've exceeded your daily limit, because the two machines talk to each other.
You know what it's going to be like, which actually segues nicely in with the next question I wanted your take on, but it reminds me of when you go to travel somewhere soon, the good old green eco-police are going to say, I'm sorry, Patrick, you've exceeded your carbon footprint. This is here now, Patrick. This is
you bring up a very tangible topic that actually is documented right now, and you probably done your own work on it, but when Oregon came out with this new GPS device to put into automobiles to track mileage and where you went, on which roads you drove, in order to give you a tax bill that's going to be in the place of a gasoline tax, supposedly. But they figure, well, that's the ultimate way to charge for driving on a highway, is to go see which highway you drove on, and then we'll send you a tax bill that's just for you. It won't be gasoline tax. It'll be specifically for you. Well, I ran across, that's bad enough that they want to track your whereabouts, but I ran across a university study that was behind that action in Oregon. And this study, one of the professors did a big slideshow presentation somewhere internally at the school. And I found this slideshow, right? And I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden they start talking about carbon footprint. You know what carbon footprint is? Kind of the summation of your life. How much grass do you have that you have to water? How big is your house? What kind of a car do you drive? How much do you travel, etc.? So your carbon footprint is important to these, whatever you want to call them, these eco-fascists, right?
That's what they're called, yeah.
What they said is that the ideal is to use the national database to calculate your carbon footprint and create a customized tax bill for you and you alone based on your carbon footprint. Now, that's using other data, even data outside of Oregon, to decide how much to charge you. Now, if you drive a Prius, if you live in a 600 square foot condo and take light rail to work every day, or maybe better, you walk, you might get a tax rebate. But if you drive a gas guzzling SUV, if you've got a quarter acre of grass in your yard, maybe some cattle out back that emit too much methane, and if you got a 2,000 square foot house and you like to travel here and there, whatever, once a month to go on vacation or whatever, then you're going to get a bill that's going to choke a horse to punish you for having such a carbon-rich lifestyle. Now, this is here right now. This is what they say they're going to do right this second. And these are authoritative sources. So what you just said is exactly right. You might go on the internet someday to buy a plane ticket, say to go to Europe or something on a vacation. And you go in and you put all your information in and you get to that submit button and you click submit. And then a message comes back on the screen and says, you've exceeded your monthly carbon footprint allowance. Try again next month. Good luck. And you might even get some suggestions, a list of things. Well, here's where you need to cut back, Mrs. Zelensky. You need to, maybe you should buy a Prius. Maybe you should start, using your bicycle to ride to work, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you should take your grass out and put in desert landscape or whatever. But this is the way these people are thinking, and this is how they're going to corral us down the road. When they finally get this whole information superhighway thing straightened out and the Internet of Things, we'll be in such a straitjacket we won't be able to move left or right.
Well, and let's not forget George Orwell's, if you want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. And then, of course, good old Al Gore, the ultimate chicanerous huckster, the unscrupulous charlatan that he is. He says today, actually, there's a Fox News clip, and people can look this up. It says, Al Gore suggests fertility management to fight global warming. It says former Vice President Al Gore raised eyebrows last week when he suggested that fertility management was the key to fighting global warming and promoting economic development in poor countries. Gore's comments drew criticism from free marketers who said his remarks were eco-imperialistic. So there you go, eco-imperialism. Gore's agenda for saving the world from global warming has always included population control, and that's what I talk about in my book. And the bottom line is that it's about depopulation, isn't it?
It is, and there's not going to be any resistance or any rebellion against this system until people connect the dots with the pain that they have in their life and how the pain was brought to them. They don't get it yet. For instance, the middle class has been decimated, just wrecked in the last 8 years of the Obama administration. That's not to say that Bush before him and Clinton before him and, all the way back to at least Jimmy Carter didn't have a hand in that. But the middle class has been decimated. Record numbers are on food stamps. Record numbers of people have no savings whatsoever. They're living paycheck to paycheck, but they're still living. At least they're still paying their rent, but they have no savings. Now, why do they have no savings? Because you can't make any money on savings. You end up spending all your money because why leave it in the bank? And now people are down to the wire, and not quite poverty, but they're doggone close to it. But they don't associate the pain of destruction of the middle class with these technocrats, with this global transformation process that's going on. When they do connect it, Sheila, there will be trouble in River City, but they haven't connected it yet. And I know you and I are types that want people to connect it. We keep telling them, put two and two together, folks, and, get the picture here. This isn't just happening because bad stuff happens. Of course, bad stuff happens once in a while, but most of the stuff that's happening is a purposeful strategy to transform the world into something completely different than what we have known and grown up with for the last however many years you've been growing up.
Indeed, that is so true. You look around at some of these people, their statements, and it's hard to believe that people are not being charged. Why are people not being hung for high treason? I'd like to know that myself. You've got people out there like Mao Zedong in a skirt, good old Hillary Clinton there. Did you see Madeleine Albright's comments? There's a special place in hell for people that don't vote for Hillary Clinton. I mean, the statements they throw out there are unbelievable, and yet we will get charged with oppositional defiance disorder, this new concocted disorder that writes us off as kooks. NDAA and the Patriot Act allow them to whisk us away, shove us in the white coats, never to be heard from again. But these statements are unbelievable, and Madeleine Albright's statement is no exception.
Madeleine Albright is an ex-member of the Trilateral Commission, by the way. She was a very famous member of it when she was Secretary of State. she's kind of a female Al Gore in some ways, a real ideologue. So I'm not surprised she'd back up the wife of her buddy, Bill Clinton, who also was a member of the Trilateral Commission. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But, to hear somebody like Albright come out and start flapping about this stuff is kind of like, Henry Kissinger does this every once in a while, too. He comes out of the woodwork. Who knows where he is? But he comes out, gets on TV, and says some of the most outrageous things. And you go, what's that all about? Why did he bother even to come out of his closet to say anything? But here they come, and it's like, gosh, are these people ever going to pass away?
How old is David Rockefeller?
He's in his 90s.
These guys got to be hopped up on some pretty advanced technologies, haven't they, though? I mean, seriously. I mean, they get all the best non-GMO food and probably have seeds in bunkers.
Yeah, they're taking all the supplements and everything.
They're taking
all they have to do is call Ray Kurzweil up and ask him what he takes as his supplements all day long and just do what he does.
You have an uncanny sense, because my next comment was actually on this move of transhumanism, though. The lines that are being drawn with now cloning embryos and this, the gene splicing that's actually taken in 2016. Do you notice a real shift down the road of transhumanism like never before?
Well, there's two parts of transhumanism. There's the myth of it, the facade, and then there's the reality of it. And as you know, I know you've studied this pretty closely too. In decades past and in centuries past, transhumanism was a metaphysical proposition. There was no evidence. There was no scientific evidence they could ever pull it off. They talk about the Holy Grail, but who's ever seen it? You can't find it. It was completely a metaphysical proposition that man would become immortal in his own right by his own hand. They never had anything to go on tangibly. Well, when science really started to get cooking, back in the 80s and the 90s, when transhumanism really got started in the early 1990s, you had people like Max Moore coming forward with his wife, and he's a PhD in philosophy, by the way, but his wife is an artist. She came forward with him, and they kind of became the spokesman for the transhuman movement. And then all these press releases have come out since then about how we're going to achieve immortality, and how, Ray Kurzweil says how we're going to achieve the singularity is going to completely transform the human condition. We're going to have humans 2.0, and we're going to live forever. We're going to travel in space as bits in a computer, or we're going to have an android. We can live permanently in an android, and all we have to do is go in and have the oil change once in a while. So there's the bluster and the bluff of transhumanism. But underneath, Sheila, you have to ask the question, has science really done anything tangible to actually bring mankind one step closer to immortality?
Right.
And the answer is no, they haven't. It hasn't. So I believe, just like global warming is a scam, just like sustainable development is a scam, there's the talk and then there's the substance, right? And the substance of transhumanism is not there. The talk is still there, just like it's been for hundreds of years. But science has not advanced the cause of immortality one step beyond where it's always been. Men still die, women still die, and they will continue to die, even if life is extended a little bit. And of course, it has been, even without the transhumanists. When they figured out how to do a heart transplant, a lot of people got a second lease on life. But it didn't mean that they were transhumanists going to live forever either. So the people who think they're going to live forever have pitted themselves against Almighty God, because the Bible says it's appointed for man once to die, and after that, the judgment. Well, okay, they have a right to do that. They have a right to say what they want to say. But just for the record, you're pitting yourself against what God clearly says, that the condition of mankind, because of sin, you're going to die. And you're not going to overcome what God has said is certain. That's my opinion.
Well, Patrick, it's certainly going to be frightening for these la-la land, cotton candy, comatose Christians, isn't it?
It's going to be frightening to somebody who doesn't have the Bible as an anchor for their souls. Yeah, it's going to be frightening for them. What's concerning is that mankind has been through these cycles many times before. There has been rebellions against God many times in history. The Tower of Babel was the first one, the big one, but there's been others since then. And there's going to be more in the future, I might add, too. So, what we're going through right now is very much a rebellion against God. We can look back in history and see that, and I know your book addresses that. And people can rebel and holler and scream and promote their atheist doctrines or whatever as much as they want, but it doesn't change the reality of the fact that sooner or later they're going to come face to face and nose to nose with Almighty God, and they're going to have to make some serious decisions. Hopefully they'll do that before they die, because once they die, it's too late. But mankind is going off on this global delusion right now. It's a global religion that's taking place, that's forming up. It's bringing back some of the ancient pagan religious aspects of, stuff we saw in the Old Testament even. And you look at it and you shake your head and say, wow, what are these people thinking? But they really believe that they have the answer to life. I remember when Shirley MacLaine wrote her book. She was a consummate New Ager, and she... what was her book? Was called Out on a Limb or something like that.
Yeah, Out on a Limb, you bet.
And I remember the video of her standing on a beach with her arms wide open, screaming at the universe, I am God, I am God, I am God.
Okay,
Okay.
Shirley.
Well, whatever floats your boat, but you get ready to sink. That's not the way it is. And then you have that famous physicist by the name of Dr. Richard Seed.
Yes.
He was the guy, you remember, that made the first cloning stink back in the late 90s. I'm going to clone a human, he said. And everybody got upset, freaked out. Well, he stayed around for a long time, actually, but he actually said on video that he was going to become a god.
He did.
And he said, I will become God. And if you don't like, this is a quote, he says, if you don't like it, you can get off. If you try to kill me, I will kill you. That came out of his mouth. Oh my gosh, a sophisticated PhD, a physicist of the top education quality, saying that he is God and you better stay out of my way or else.
Well, they really are self-proclaimed ruling oligarchs who are, in fact, soulless pagans, as you just mentioned. I say that in my book, and their designs on reshaping the world into this complete state of totalitarianism, global governance. We see that with the Pope. We see the one world religion fusion here, where he signed off 2 weeks ago to bring the world's leaders together, because after all, everyone does need to embrace the goddess Gaia as God. And that's the thing, Patrick, is that Christians are at war with this group and they don't even know it. That's the stunning part of it, because it's designed that way. It's a good example of the Bible's observation in Isaiah 29:15 that the devil's work is done in the darkness. Because, look at this. As the West, I always say, when the historians are sifting through the ashes of what once was the Free West, trying to figure out what happened, well, we're going to find out that it was done hidden in plain sight. This ungodly Marxist society, that's what we've been radically transformed into, a soulless, ungodly Marxist society. America was the last bastion of freedom, and for that, it is under attack, because I really believe it represents everything the founding fathers envisioned, a nation of free people under God. And that really is why I believe it's so attacked. But yet, here's the thing. When you go back to the empires of, the Grecian, the Roman, the Babylonian empires, even go back to Nimrod and the paganism it was everywhere. And that's the thing, whether you have the, showdown at the prophets of Baal and Elijah saying, hey guys, listen up, prophets. You guys better get with the program here. And that's really what we're saying in a way is, how long are you people going to have one foot in the world, one foot conveniently in the things of God? Because that really doesn't work either, does it?
It doesn't work. No, it doesn't. You will find yourself with both feet in the world eventually. And there's an interesting parallel with what's happening today and what happened at the Tower of Babel. If you read the text carefully surrounding that story in the Old Testament of what happened at Babel, prior to that situation, they built houses and stuff with rocks and mortar, clay mixed with water and stuff, and they'd make a kind of mortar, a cement, a crude cement. But you can't build a very good building with that kind of material. But that's all they had. That was all they knew. Well, somebody figured out a new technology on how to build a building. If they used baked bricks that were square or rectangular and glued them together with a tar-like substance, maybe just really tar that they just took off of an oil pool or something, that they could build a building that just would go way high in the sky. And people saw this new technology and go, wow, look at that, man. My house is falling down every time a strong wind blows. And you got this thing and you say you're going to build a tower to heaven. I think you can do that. And they got deceived. And so all the people of the world got on board with that, man. They started building, piling up those bricks and piling up getting tar and stuff and putting together their new building to go into heaven. And of course, God scattered the languages, says you're not going to do that. But here's the point. That new technology was a central part of the delusion that came on the people that they could actually build a tower into heaven. And we have the same kind of deception today where there's new technology coming into the world, coming into our view. And the people that want to do things that are anti-God are saying, look at this technology over here. Look what we can do with this. Ray Kurzweil says, look what we can do with the singularity. It's coming, 2045. Oh, we're all going to be doomed. Everything's going to change in the year 2045. And they're building this whole deception based on this new technology that they have at their fingertips. Very similar picture, even though it's more advanced and complex today, but it's a very similar pattern that we see today. Technology is deceiving many people who want to be deceived, I might add, who are spiritually minded people, not Christian minded, but spiritually minded people who want to be deceived. They grab a hold of this new technology and they say, wow, look what we can do. And that's exactly what Richard Seed was saying when he said, I will become God. Here's a guy who had all the technology available to him, all the degrees, all the latest laboratory stuff, you name it. He knew all the other players in the whole business and stuff. And he had completely been deceived into thinking he can achieve it. And he said, I will become God.
Absolutely. Well, in Genesis 6, the same thing began when you see the mighty men which are of old, the men of the name. It's just like in the days of Noah. You see these portals for giants. This reminds me of CERN because we're really talking about the Tower of Babel, hidden occult meets weird science meets witchcraft. But it's interesting that we're at a time where all this stuff is merging, isn't it?
It is. And the significant thing about this last wave and the last rise of global warming stuff and climate change stuff is that it brought religion into the mainstream of it. This was not the case 10 years ago. You could see it coming, but it was not there. There was a major conference in 2014 called the Interfaith Summit on Climate Change.
Yes.
You remember that. I know you remember that. I think we talked about it before. And the World Council of Churches issued a press release right after that. And I think this kind of summarizes exactly what we're talking about. The World Council of Churches said, with pride I might add, unfortunately, they said, there has never been such a large amount of religious environmental activity in one location in the history of the world. And amen to that. This week will mark a watershed in the history of religion. It will be the time that people remember as the time when the world's faiths declared themselves irrevocably as green faiths.
Yep.
And man, if that doesn't send chills up your spine, I don't know what will. It's like, uh-oh, this is not good. If the major religions of the world have been converted, and we know they have, like the Methodists and Episcopalians and the Catholic Church and so on, they're all on board with this stuff. Okay, that's the major religions of the world, but then you have the evangelical world running after it now too, in various ways and in various forms. And they're starting to, get on board with the whole green stuff. You take, some of the big mega churches today and stuff that are dealing with this, you're like, wow, you look at them and say, are you still a church even? I mean, you're a Christian church? You're dealing with all this other stuff now. It's like, boy, did you change.
The green gospel of the environment movement, it's the largest and most influential social phenomenon today in modern history, Patrick. And it went from sort of this relative obscurity just a few decades ago to spawning thousands, and I mean tens of thousands of committed activists in churches of this green global economic global agenda. So it's weird because you remember, you go back to the invocation at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, and it's interesting because they were reading directly out of Alice Bailey's Source of Light. The great invocation is Lucifer, and the plan that they were referring to in that little speech is the creed of the great invocation based in theosophy. You know, that's very closely aligned with Vedic Hinduism. You have Theosophical Society, which originally started in New York in the late it was actually in the 1800s, but it wasn't until Alice Bailey, a hardcore Luciferian, broke away from the society in the early 1900s and created Lucifer Trust. And where do you think all this disseminated global warming material, where do you think it comes from? It's United Nations uses Lucius Trust to disseminate all this pagan New Age literature. And Lucius Trust was, and again, if you go back to, of course, Theosophy and you get into, Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, I mean, these are people that are hardcore Luciferians, and people just don't get the concepts of New Age and the New World Order. They had their origins in those books, but yet people just passively dismiss it. And yet the cult, as you know, Patrick, they've always had this rank obsession with summoning the power of these ancient demigods, haven't they?
That's right. That's right. They have. And it's gotten intensely spiritual now, which was kind of my main point. This whole thing was kind of hiding in incubation, I think, for quite a long time. But once the whole program was unleashed, we see most of this religiosity visibly now in the last 10 years, and it's just huge. It's just one of the biggest stories in the universe right now on how this whole stuff all this stuff has come back to us.
Somebody asked me recently, a couple of weeks ago, what did you think of the Super Bowl halftime show, Sheila? I said, I have 3 words: Illuminati, LGBT, and witchcraft, because that's what it was. It was a swirling chaos of this Illuminati imagery pushing a one world global citizen, the rainbow on there. I mean, yeah, take a sign from when God destroyed the earth and turn it into another sign where God is going to get a little upset. Do you find that interesting? They hijacked God's rainbow, his promise. They hijacked it. And I mean, it was just an infusion of become a global citizen, wasn't it?
Well, that's right. And, there was also a time when all of these types of things, like the LGBT movement, they existed out. There was people out there that were living that lifestyle, and they didn't bother anybody, and nobody bothered them. That's the way it was when I was growing up. I didn't agree with it, but okay, there's people out there. They didn't hassle me. I didn't hassle them. But today, it's not enough just to live the lifestyle. They want you to give hearty approval. They want you to pay for it.
Yeah.
And they want you to pass laws, to make it a civil right. It's like, well, okay, so in other words, you want to drag your sin out into the light of day and, using cart ropes, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you want us to give hearty approval to everything you're doing.
Right. Oh.
Well, we ain't going to do that. But see, this is the way it is with the eco movement in general. This is the way it is with the United Nations now. It's not enough that we're just doing this. You must agree with me. That's what Al Gore called anybody that didn't agree with him on climate change. You were a denier, he said. And as a denier, you deserve to be punished, he said.
Well,
you deserve to be punished.
Not only deserve to be punished, but Naomi Oreskes, the Harvard Planetary Sciences head, she actually likes the idea of prosecuting people under RICO law, Patrick, for being a denier. And of course, it's not surprising Christina Figueres has said things on record like that herself. So, and which is surprising because she actually announced stepping down. Did you find that move interesting?
We haven't seen the end of her. I can almost just guarantee that. We haven't seen the end of her. The current president or the current head of the UN is close to stepping down. His term is up. I think he's already said he's going to step down. And I wouldn't be surprised. I saw another article the day after that saying that another woman at the United Nations saying that it's time for the UN to be headed by a woman. It'd be the first time. So it wouldn't surprise me if Figueres actually got into the top spot there. Wouldn't surprise me either if Bill Clinton got into the top spot.
Oh, good Lord. We're in
anybody
trouble.
but Hillary.
Well, wouldn't it kind of sort of be Hillary at arm's length? But I guess what bothers me in the whole Scalia death and the sort of way that the cards are all being reshuffled. The deck's really being reshuffled here, and people are getting into key positions. You look at Loretta Lynch mob, some of her statements. I mean, it's a frightening setup right now, isn't it?
Well, they've taken the gloves off. They've taken the blinders off. They've taken any amount of discretion off, and they're just blatantly letting it out. I don't think their heart has changed. I think they just have no discretion on their tongue anymore. They're just, they're letting it all hang out, so to speak.
What do you think of Donald Trump? What's your take on him?
He's a little scary, quite honestly. I'm not. I haven't really gotten into the heat of that battle because I don't really think that national politics is going to help us a lot right now. But the people are clamoring for Donald Trump. It reminds me a little bit how they clamored for a king, how Israel clamored for a king when they had a pretty good system going.
Yeah.
And God said, okay, you want a king, I'll give you a king. And they ended up getting Saul. It turned out to be a pretty bad decision in the end of it. I say to people, look, be careful what you wish for. You've got everybody and their brother is like on board with Trump right now. He hasn't really, in my mind, he hasn't given one concrete policy of something he's actually going to do that's somewhat doable if he gets to be president. And in one sense, he is the consummate technocrat. He really is neither Republican nor is he really Democrat. But he is an operator. He is an expert in systems theory, if you will. And he's an expert at running businesses, stuff like that. If he runs the country like he runs a business, then he will become the ultimate technocrat that will slam the door on technocracy in our nation. And to me, knowing what I know about technocracy, that is kind of a scary prospect.
It's not surprising that he touches on the heartstrings of the patriotism. He doesn't like, of course, the flood of Muslims coming into the country. So it does play on people's hearts because let's face it, those are things you and I want. We don't like the idea of people that want to behead us flooding into our country and giving voting rights, do we? So we don't like the banksters. He's even talking this week of auditing the Fed. Well, we know that's what got JFK in trouble. So it's almost like it's scripted to me, though.
Well, just a little bit. We won't have long to wait, will we? The thing that really disturbs me is that Hitler said a lot of the same things.
I was just actually I'm glad you took it there, Patrick.
He was riding on the heels of nationalism, and he really played that up, and people like that kind of talk like they do today.
Yeah.
And the thing is, how will Trump run the country by any other means than he ran his businesses?
But he's a ruthless businessman. Let's not kid ourselves.
That's my point. He's not a government for the people kind of guy and by the people. He's pretty much a ruthless businessman. Now, if you were to take, pick a company like IBM, everybody knows a little bit about IBM. They're run like, if you work for IBM, you're the groupie. If you mess up one day, you might be just gone the next day. It's just, where'd Joe go? I don't know. They kicked him out. You're always on a short leash, I'll tell you what, if you work at IBM or any other big tech company. Would you like America to be run that way? Would you like somebody in charge of the government that would run the government the way IBM runs their company? That would be the perfect technocracy, you see. You'd have to wear your ID card even to go into the bathroom.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. And talking about shutting internet down and building a wall around America and some of the things he's talking about. I mean, there's so many great things that he discusses, and yet there's things that I just go, where are you going with this? So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. The new appointment, though, to the Supreme Court, what are your thoughts on where Obama's going to take that?
Well, I'm not sure that he's even going to get a chance to appoint a justice at this point. We'll see if he does. I think probably the Republicans can block him and wait for somebody else to get in to do it. But if he were to appoint somebody like a Loretta Lynch, we're in big trouble. And there was a time when we did not have an odd number of justices on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And I would almost be in favor of just letting this appointment go and go back to just having an even number of justices on the Supreme Court. Constitutionally, we could do that. They expanded the Supreme Court by fiat. They can contract it by fiat as well. And I think probably we'd be better off if we had an even number of justices. That would require a 2-vote spread to get anything to pass or to shut it down. And right now, it just takes obviously a majority. We've seen how many cases have we seen decided by that one single vote? There's been tons of them.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, it all ties into this whole, you said it best on your subtitle of your book. It's really the Trojan horse of global transformation. And I really do hope, folks, that you do pick up a copy of Patrick's book. It's Technocracy Rising. Again, the Trojan horse of global transformation. It's really where we're at, aren't we, Patrick?
Well, the transformation is the word that the United Nations uses. The Trilateral Commission uses that term as well. And that's what we need to call it. They're calling it a transformation. And that means that it's a completely different thing coming out the other side. You know, it's not just, I'm getting a makeover. You know, this is not a makeover, folks. This is a transformation. This is like a metamorphosis from a caterpillar to a butterfly, except it's in the other direction. We're going to go from being a butterfly into being a woolly worm on a plant somewhere, plant leaf. But it is a transformation. It's not obvious to most people what's taking place. Now that we're beginning to shed light on it, people can understand what's going on. The question is, will they understand? Will they take the blinders off, and will they open up their eyes enough to see what's going on? And I hope many Christians, I'm hoping among other things, that this kind of material will spark Christians into a new appreciation for Bible prophecy. This has been ripped out of the church over the last 30, 40 years in a horrendous way. And very few people talking about Bible prophecy anymore in a serious tone. And many pastors are actually telling their people, don't bother reading Bible prophecy because it doesn't matter.
Right.
To which I say, phooey. That's the kiss of death for the Christian walk. You just can't take 4 or 5 books and rip them out of your Bible and throw them away. The last book of Revelation has something to say about that. It says you don't add to it, you don't take away.
Don't add to it, don't take away. Well, and that's the thing. I've actually heard a pastor recently on YouTube saying, forget about Revelation. It doesn't matter. So, obviously it just doesn't matter. And you said the word transformation. Well, isn't that what Obama used? Fundamentally transform, all right. But here's the thing. Prophecy is on fire in the world today, and people got to get with the program. And I think the answer to it all is getting back in the Word of God, getting back to basics, so people aren't biblically anemic and really hear what God's saying. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of stuff going on today, Patrick. Everybody and their dog wants to talk about what the devil's doing, but what did God do 2,000 years ago at the cross? And that's an important message for today, isn't it?
Well, it is, and that's really the most important message for today is basically that is the only escape hatch, if you will, that we have from this cesspool of a planet. And I don't want to cheapen that either, but what I'm saying is there's only one way out, and that is through the blood of Christ. And you can either accept it or not, but if you don't, you better get all the gusto in life you can get right now, because you ain't going to like what comes later.
Well, you got that right. Patrick, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Folks, bookmark technocracy.news. That is the website of Patrick. And Patrick, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and do come back and see us soon.
Hey, I'll be glad to do that. I love talking with you because we're just like birds of a feather on this stuff. It's great.
Indeed, birds of a feather flock together. Thanks, Patrick. Folks, that was Patrick Wood, author of Technocracy Rising. His information is linked there on February 26, 2016 bio. Do check that out. And don't forget, Steve Quayle is on Monday. You're going to want to definitely listen to that show. It's going to be great. And then I'm off for the month of March, and I'm back in the full swing of things April 1st. Thanks, everyone who donated to the fundraiser. I want to thank you for that. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Good night, and God bless.